if you want to do enterprise AI, you need to have that digital twin. So that it comes back again. So how do you make sure that AI agents that you have, that they do what they're supposed to do, that they stick to the, let's say, the confined space that they need to stick to, or in an AI agent, because people are creating AI agents, it spreads like wildfire. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the BPM 360 podcast, recording from yet another hotel room in my case. And my name's Casper, your host. And with me, as always, Russell, my good friend and co-host. Russell, where are you at, man?
I'm at home, as you can see.
I see the curtain. Yeah.
You see the curtain.
It's a brilliant way to see if you're at home or not. How are you?
I'm fine. Actually, I had a nice encounter when we're talking about digitalization and processes. Normally I have company cards, and today I had the happy opportunity to register my new camper. Well, it's a second-hand cab, but that's a different story. But so, and I remembered actually the first time I actually went to the German authorities to register a car, respective motorbike. Actually, was my motorbike I registered. It was a painful procedure which took several days, and ultimately at some time you got the number plate. You even had to then take the number plate back home, take the motorbike then there with the number plates on, but you still didn't have the stamps, and they checked the number of the the motor block. Then they would give you the stickers. So it was a very tight process, and the waiting times were ages, and it was super manual. It was devastating, really traumatic. But today it was just you had to book an online appointment, okay, and they're scheduled out so that the civil servants aren't, or the people working in the offices there don't get an overload, of course. So,
Yeah.
but then when you're there, you get the online forms, and it is just a matter of minutes. And even the number plates you can register before, you can have them printed before, so you reserve your whatever fancy number. And overall, I was thinking, yeah, everybody's complaining about things not moving forward, but certain bureaucratic environments and certain processes, they really have stepped up. And I think it's a very streamlined process. I think they've put everything. You even have the papers now. You can have it in an app. So that's digitalized the process of actually deregistering, registering, changing ownership, all this stuff. You can do it online now. And so I would say, wow, there are good examples that things are progressing. And as the
Very
Germans
good.
say, weiter so. Keep it
Yeah,
up.
just keep calm and crack on. I do remember. I mean, I the last car I bought secondhand, I bought that in Germany, and then I drove it back to the Netherlands, and then you need to register it. So it's a similar process. It's just also you import a car as well. I mean, it took me like 15 minutes online for all the tax stuff. Then you book an appointment at the check. In Dutch we call that RDW. You get there, they check if the car is really the car that's in the papers, and then they say okay, and then 2 days later you get your license plate. We don't get to choose our license plates. We just get one assigned by government, and then you have them created somewhere, and then you're on the road. So it took about 2.5 days and 135 euros. That was all. And then you have a car on your name. If I want to sell a second-hand car in the Netherlands, I can just go by app, and you can just transfer registration to another person in like 10 seconds. It's incredible.
Wow. Okay.
So that's really useful.
I'm not saying there's not room for improvement in Germany. I'm just saying that they're because I hadn't done that for decades. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they come from a long way, right? I mean, they're making progress. I mean,
yeah.
Even now, it's more common to use a debit or credit card in Germany than it was like 5 years ago, when you always need to bring cash with you.
But there's another topic about these platform battles there. Debit Visa versus EC in Germany is a big battle. So certain banks just don't issue EC for free, but a lot of say pharmacists or whatever, they will only accept the EC card, because you see that there's a battle of platforms it's all about money on the
of course. So man, but it's good to have you here. Let's do another one. I enjoyed the last one that we just published on going through what was in the news. So let's do that again.
Okay.
We of course we leverage AI for that. We talk about it, but we also practice it. So we have another, let's say, round of news on the various topics around BPM. Are you ready for it, Russell?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Let me share my screen with you so you can see what I see. So we want to share the screen. Yeah, we'll do the entire screen. That's fine. And then we go here. Very good. All right. Russell, do you see what I'm seeing? I have to ask.
I see what you're seeing. Yes.
Very good. All right. So first category of things that I always would like to know about is BPM, and in this case, let's say business process modeling, really, in this case, and process excellence. The first one, actually, I think, is pretty much capturing what we all see happening, right? From process design to AI-driven optimization. And it's a topic coming from Monday.com, a platform for content creation and curation and different and project management. And basically what they say, it's evolving from simple efficiency to strategic capability. As much as I want that to happen, I don't think it goes fast enough. What are your thoughts on that, Russell?
Well, interesting to see that Monday.com has brought this article out. I think in their context of having project management and like these workflows and automation around processes in the context of something like approvals and so it's a nice, clever app to set up certain process automations. And here in this context, AI certainly will help to streamline whatever governance and processes you want to implement on that platform. But I'm challenging in how far AI can already have the full context of providing a good process design on an enterprise level. So here I think the first steps are being made, the first like examples are being shown where it says, "Oh yes, that's a good risk you identified there," but it's not really. But I think say our compliance officers, when you have a very dedicated compliance handbook that you need to reflect your processes against, I think there you can have some very good results because you have a very clear structured guideline of rules to actually then challenge your process design against. So for the sake of, let's say, GXP, risk assessment, ISO, cybersecurity, I think here the very concise, comprehensive, compiled, there's handbooks and guidelines are a very good context. Looking at the business and aspect now on a global end-to-end level, I think it'll be interesting to see how what is the reference case? What are you actually challenging the process against, and
Mhm.
how do you overcome this very local view versus, say, what are the overarching strategic objectives of your company? How does what you're analyzing on a local process,
Mhm.
how does that fit into the bigger picture of supporting this overarching strategy, and sometimes also conflicting strategies? And here, I think this is what we're talking about. I think we still have a way to go to be able to set up the digital twin of the organization
Yeah.
with all
Oh yeah.
aspects
Yeah.
that then you can really evaluate from multiple dimensions and in a different magnitude then. And I think these examples they bring out from, for example, from Monday.com, with all respect,
Yeah.
love the
Yeah. Yeah. No.
the results, but I think
Absolutely.
there's way to go before you really get to the level that you can really get a real solid design.
Yeah. And I think this comes back to the dichotomy that we see. Are we talking about BPM for AI, or are we talking about AI for BPM? Because those are two crazily different things. And I think AI for BPM is interesting, but I totally agree with you that I don't think AI is far enough yet to design actual processes that stick in the light of a, let's say, complex multinational organization that needs to operate in multiple countries with multiple legislations and regulations involved. It's simply not that far yet. BPM for AI is a completely different topic because that goes much more in the direction of the digital twin that you just mentioned. And I think we need to dedicate an entire episode to the digital twin and talk a little bit about what we think are components of it, because it's typically much more complex and broader than a lot of people give it credit for. Right.
Yeah, and it seems to be becoming relevant in the news because I also read this other saw that that GBTech is now promoting a lot this idea of convergence of AI and BPM as a transformational like suite. And
Yeah.
so it's interesting to said, oh, well, maybe they read maybe somebody's listening to our podcast or vice versa.
Yeah. Who knows? Who
No,
knows?
but it seems to become more and more, let's say, a topic that it's manageable now, and it makes more sense to bring these disciplines together. I think the aspects of tool chains that we've been discussing in the course of like transformational initiatives and processes are forcing people to think more thoroughly about how you have to have one overarching meta model to have something like a tool chain work properly in such initiatives. I think there's a lot of pressure there to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving forward, we shall also in the list of articles that we have. The next category that we have, process mining and process intelligence. At first, I had to read it. I mean, we do this pretty much on the top of our head. Let's be very clear to our listeners. We generate this like really briefly in advance of recording our podcast, so we respond to it cold, like you would read it the first time as well. And but as I read this like 5 minutes ago, it was like, all right, so 15 billion and 100 billion, that's a big difference. And then I saw there were about 5 years difference between the two things. So the
Ah,
first
yeah,
one
yeah,
is
yeah.
around,
Okay, so
yeah, that's,
so
it
this
got
is
me
I
too,
love this
Russell.
challenge of really blurring out your first thoughts and then saying, oh, let's look before you leap and stuff like that. So it's a good challenge for the mental
Exactly.
agility that we're working on. But I recall the last session we had, there was something, and now let me get the numbers right, but it was Oracle trying to get raising funds for 500 billion to
No,
invest
50
in
billion.
cloud
I think 50
platforms for
billion.
AI.
50.
Was it
I
50?
think you got one
Ah,
zero
was it
too
only
much. Yeah, I think it was 50
okay, that's
billion.
lame. That's nothing. Okay,
But
so
it's
50
still a
billion.
lot,
That's
right? I mean, that it still is, but it still is a enormous market if you look at the Insight Partners or research and markets. I mean, 15 billion is a lot of money for market size, but 100 billion is huge 5 years later. I mean, that's a pretty steep growth. And that means that there is more than enough in the market to share with all the, let's say, the solution providers out there. But it's just,
yeah.
it's a
So it's big
very
business, but
hip and happening topic still.
exactly. So you have on the one hand you have like the process mining software, and I guess the process mining market is more than the software; it's the services around it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And also we have the difference in years as well. But we
Of
are
course.
talking about a big shift forward. I mean, sometimes you just have to, let's say, good news for us. As we're in this business.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We have enough to talk about for the coming years.
Yes. And it'll be interesting to see more and more use cases like fluttering in and how I think some of the key capabilities that are actually already being thought through by our beloved professors that we invite here to the meetings
Yeah.
and by some of the software vendors already being functionally being programmed, that there's way to go before they find a wide range of application. Now, yes, we all hope that AI will help accelerate this, and that needs to be seen. But I think the adoption rate of really using process mining or to its full capabilities and harvesting the real potential here, I think we're still quite far away from that.
So that there's, you just trigger me with something. Process mining is not new anymore, right? It's been there for, theoretically, it's been there for like 25 years. But let's say the last 10 years really saw an uptick, sorry, an uptick in the use and the development of process mining. You would assume that software vendors of any type of software, big business software like ERP software or whatever, you would assume that they now understand as well that, hey, wait a minute, whatever we support, whatever type of process we support the execution of, we better make sure that we create the event logs in the background that are suitable for mining. And then even a big ERP house like Oracle and SAP, you would at a certain point in time, they have Signavio with SAP, right? It's a process mining platform. You would assume at a certain point in time that SAP comes to the conclusion like, yeah, right now we only keep the end timestamp of an activity. Why don't they also do the starting timestamps? This is the first time I start up a transaction, and then I'll record it also once it's done. And yeah, you can have interruptions in between. I get that, but at least you have something to look at rather than just two endpoints, because I want to be able to at least have an insight into what's the waiting time before somebody else picks up the next step in the process. And I really don't understand why that's not happening yet.
Well, and to be fair,
Well, you're
I
going to be
was
fair now.
astonished. Yeah, to be fair,
All right,
I
go
was
ahead.
astonished how many events SAP per default is actually logging. So I still think that they're still evolving on the smoothness with which these event logs can be transformed into, well, let's say that the transactional logs can be transformed into event logs for the intelligence. But they're getting there. But the per default, the amount of events is there's quite a lot
Oh,
per default
absolutely.
being written away.
Absolutely.
I did an Oracle project in order to cache, and there it seemed everything's configurable, I was told. But looking into the per default, what was, say changes to delivery date or some things where along the process you would want to define KPIs to see your on time in full or on, first promise and all these kind of things. And there was just no data there. So they
Yeah.
were overwriting delivery dates and promise dates and all this, and they weren't even logged in the system. And that's something where I said that per default, SAP has a complete different mindset on having an audit trail, not for the sake of compliance, but for the sake of you change something. I'm gonna remember that. Who changed it when? Coming from a more financial background, but also taking this principle into, so let's say, order to cash. But there still is, and now when we're thinking about the concept of object-oriented process mining and the general usage of process mining as well, I think they brought up some old concepts like insights that are more like object, document flow oriented. So here there's way to go. There's a lot of room for improvement to bring this into a standard plug and play setup where in an ERP or any software, it can be ERP, can be CRM, that there is a clear understanding that you need to have the process in mind and all the exception handling and not just the happy flow as something that you automatically relate to certain relevant business objects and their changes, so their life cycle, and be able to automatically visualize it. So I think actually converging the process intelligence idea into the backbone of the actual transformational software that is happening there is something where I haven't seen that there's way to go. I say there's a lot of room for tools to evaluate, evolve, and really bring this into the core concept of what they're offering.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that. And so that's an interesting viewpoint. And let's see what else we have in our news list for today, because we can keep talking about this for a long time for sure, Russell. So let me just move into the topic of enterprise AI, agentic AI, because we always have some of that in here as well. There is AI everywhere nowadays, but the one that I picked out to discuss is governance and data readiness enable the agentic enterprise. So I think this comes back to a topic that I discuss a lot with my clients as well. If you want to do enterprise AI, you need to have that digital twin. So that it comes back again. The digital twin is essentially, for a large part, your process repository, of course, enriched with a lot of other things. And if you talk about a process repository, you also immediately talk about governance. So how do you make sure that AI agents that you have, that they do what they're supposed to do, that they stick to the, let's say, the confined space that they need to stick to? And if you need to make changes anywhere in a process or in an AI agent, because people are creating AI agents, it spreads like wildfire. And sometimes I worry can governance keep up with that? And I think a little bit down the list, I just scammed through earlier, a little bit down the list, we see that same topic coming back again. So let me just have your thoughts here, and then we'll skip to the other one, see if that's in line with that as well.
Well, again, just to reiterate what I think we talked about last week as well, and also goes back to Mirko's finding there that the fundamentals are essential, and people are realizing that. So the playground of AI pilots we've gone through, and now we need to find the fundamental framework or platform on which these can be deployed, governance and data, to name two of the key aspects here. And that's on the one hand securing compliance, and the other one securing validity of and the scope on what they're actually working on. And I think that's what is happening now. So I think that is great news, because it seems to be a realization throughout the market. It's not just pumping out new capabilities on tools, but it's clearly understanding that. And really, like the other topic we were talking about, I said, yeah, but you can't just kind of let it free, but you need to set boundaries and a baseline. And I think that's happening now. So I'm really interested to see what comes out on the other side. So if you think about where is the area where AI is currently really, really, really being deployed in a wide context, and you feel it in the everyday life, and I would say that's the call center bot.
Yeah. The most advanced use cases, sorry to interrupt, Russell. The most advanced use cases I see is in supply chain, generally speaking. Of course, in supply chain. So if I look in, for instance, in the product that we have ourselves, obviously, and that's what I can see the best. Supply chain, the whole topic around your inventory strategy, how to make sure that you're not understocked or overstocked. That is such a complex landscape nowadays when you have a rather large company with warehouses everywhere. I mean, AI really is capable of basically saying, I'm going to continuously analyze this. I'm going to see that you're going to have demand in a region where you don't have stock yet. So I proactively do a stock transfer from a region where we have enough and there is no demand against it yet. So constantly, AI is capable of constantly balancing out your inventory position. And by doing that, you basically optimize your operating working capital as a part. That's where I see a lot of AI
So
being
do you
deployed.
need, so currently, how many companies do you know that are doing that?
I'm at an event right now for our company where we have a sales kickoff week. So we went through the deals for last year, and there were at least about 10 that we actually implemented that way on the large companies alone, and then really large companies.
Okay. But
So
I
that's
would think
interesting development.
that is definitely interesting.
So,
I mean, I said in my
yeah.
normal day-to-day life, I don't see so many cases, to be honest. But where I do
Mm-hmm.
see a lot is around customer service. Now that's definitely in an everyday today. How many now have much more sophisticated call center chatbots that are capable of even
Yeah,
scheduling
for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
appointments and redirecting and sending you stuff. So that's something where I think the deployment rate of well functioning, where maybe you can't break too much either if you start ordering, is something where that is really happening quite fast. And that, although there is a lot of sensitive, personal data involved. And so here it's interesting how the different speeds are. Supply chain, what you mentioned, definitely is where a lot of bottom line potential lays, in getting, and the whole data can be super complicated. And you need a certain amount of agility to be able to, react to, create a certain resilience to all these factors that are impacting your supply chain. But you mentioning that, I'm going to look into that, maybe make some recommendations to some customers that they should maybe step up their game. But
Yeah.
that's interesting, definitely. I take
And
that one with me.
you could share. Yeah. You can share the next news item on the 7 agentic AI trends shaping enterprise supply chains. It just happened to be the next in the line of, but the one that I really wanted to get
What a
through and
coincidence.
connects to the other one is agent proliferation outpacing governments. I mean, that's what we just talked about, right? where we say, listen, they surveyed over 1,000 IT leaders, showing that 83% of them report most or all teams using AI agents. However, half of the enterprise agents operate in disconnected silos. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, organizations run an average of 1,000 applications, but only 27 are integrated, or 54% have centralized governance frameworks for AI agents. I mean, if you, like Alcon, deploy 900 agents in a year, you need governance.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it's that
That's a
simple,
number.
right?
I would.
Those are
It would be
numbers. I
interesting.
mean,
I
and
need
that's
to dig in
reality.
how they. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to look into how they define agents. But this is
Yeah, sure.
Salesforce, and we know that Salesforce is a very fast moving on AI, providing AI capabilities. So I could imagine that in a Salesforce environment, every time you somehow activate a semi-automatic or automatic assistant functionality, we're talking about an agent. I'd have to look into it,
Yeah,
but
that might be.
it's interesting to see how do you deploy 900 agents? What does that actually mean? It
Yeah.
would be interesting to look in depth into that. But it's a valid point because, to be honest, from a governance perspective, anybody who, in this case, manually has a routine of taking, let's say, taking a document, putting it into, let's say, a copilot, and somehow processing it and taking the results of the processing back into the system, he is actually doing an assistant/agent functionality. And should be theoretically to a certain aspect, not just I have done my AI basic governance training and signed the document and then I do whatever I want to do. It should be submitted to, it should be more integrated into a governance aspect. So it should be the company, should know this is being done, yeah, in this context, and this is the prompt they use, and this is the data that goes out and in, and it should be in a controlled environment. Now, in a Salesforce environment, that is all measurable. That's most probably a big advantage if you do have a platform that offers a lot of different AI capabilities. It will, from a software perspective, already provide a baseline for for governance. Taking that, actually, that's interesting because we were complaining about software platforms not providing an integrated process mining approach, not to the extent as we would wish it. But if this is, and I definitely want to look into it, if this is like the approach Salesforce already has on a level that they have customers that deploy 900 agents, yeah, and they're visible, then that's not bad.
Yeah.
But as I said, the article
No.
says, no, they're not under control. They're not integrated and
No.
they're
And
not under control.
but
So that's the
what
half the problem what he described here.
one of the interesting things by going through these articles, Russell, is that you start to see connections between the various topics. I mean, if we look at the one that I have on the screen right now, we're now into the process orchestration and workflow. Do you remember in the last episode where workflow orchestration was already projected? I think it was IBM at the time that says this is going to be the next frontier,
Yeah.
and we see that coming back here in that second one where it says the year AI gets real and workflow orchestration takes center stage. I mean, just think back to 900 agents. I'm pretty convinced that a portion of those 900 connected somehow. One will do something that another one will use to do what that one needs to do. So there will be a sequence there. And this is, for me, exactly and immediately where orchestration comes in, where you can say, well, listen, if I do, let's take a simple example. I have an entire end-to-end process and I'm going to deploy 10 agents on that process. I need to know that when one agent is done, the next one in line knows that it needs to start, which pretty much is what orchestration is all about, right? I mean, it's not only about executing things, it's about making sure that you're not needlessly waiting for the previous step to finish.
Yeah, the orchestration, I think it takes two different levels. One of them is, and I think in this example with Salesforce, you could have like an implicit connection of agents because at one part of the process or the proceedings with Salesforce, case management, a certain element of maybe the case is processed with the help of an AI assistant slash agent, and then it gets processed later by another user and another agent. So implicitly, there is a sequence of results from a agentic AI that are then being
Hmm.
processed along the workflow. And that's implicit. So you don't even realize that this result here, this input, was actually provided with the support of AI and later is then again reused in a context of AI. There are other cases, and there's two aspects. One of them is this is a very clear workflow, like oriented, let's say sequence. So the
Hmm.
orchestration is more or less setting down the sequence of when the interactions with the AI assistants happen. So it's a very determined sequence. Now, there are a lot of cases, and I saw this, really interesting system set up by, also with Claude Anthropic, where you have
Hmm.
one orchestration, where the orchestration happens via an agent, and he has a certain
Okay.
autonomy on in which sequence he actually requests the services from underlying agents. And each agent has its own like context and its own speciality. And you
Hmm.
do not actually have like a workflow where it says do this, then do this, and then do this, but it says this overall objective is to stay in touch with the customer, and you have these different agents to support you doing this, and feel free to coordinate the work with them. And then with this more objective and kind of like it says, this is your team, and this is the objective, and these are the activities you can plan. There is a certain autonomy on how they interact. And
Hmm.
that is from some of the results super surprising because it breaks with what you typically define as a sequence of interactions. It's like asking somebody to organize a project, and he thinks completely differently about the sequence and how to combine things, and the results are really astonishing, astonishingly good sometimes.
Hmm.
But here, I think the governance has to be on a different level. So validating and human in the loop interactions in such an environment, that's when I think the orchestrated agents can really create their own life, their own dynamics. And I think
Yeah.
that's where governance gets really complicated. So the implicit ones, it already brings a bit of complexity to it because you have to understand the whole flow when certain inputs are then reviewed and worked on further,
Yeah.
but it's more or less under control. The real orchestration, where an agent coordinates different agents, the dynamics there, that's
Yeah. Yeah. So but that's going to be an interesting development to monitor and to watch to see how it develops. And we get first rank seats, Russell, in this podcast to see if we can have people on the show that can actually say something about this as well. I got some ideas about this, so let's work that out. I want to do one more before we wrap this up. Um, so I want to put enterprise architecture back onto the map again. Um, in all of this AI violence, I would almost say, you would almost forget about it, right? Um, Now, according to Forrester, who we all know, is that enterprise architecture has never been stronger, um, which is interesting. I like the
I
way that I
love
put
it.
it, right? Data across large organizations shows that EA is no longer oscillating between relevance and rejection. I mean, come on. I mean,
Love it. I love that
I
like
love it
key
as well.
insight.
Yeah,
That is fantastic. That says it all, doesn't it?
that
Relevance
does
and
set it all.
rejection.
I mean, a couple of lines down, it says EA has shifted from peripheral advisory role to a strategic enabler of transformation. I think that the transformation surge that we've seen over the last years certainly has, let's say, cemented the fundamental role that EA has. The one thing that I still always believe, and I'll keep saying it, is that enterprise architecture and BPM and process management are actually complementary rather than competitive. So if I go to an organization and I talk to process management people, and then I talk to enterprise architecture people, it's very often competing forces rather than complementing forces. Is that something that you experience as well, Russell, or have experienced? I think it's
Absolutely.
diminishing a little bit, but All right. Yeah. So how?
Think
Okay. Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
think but the good thing is you could take that sentence and you could exchange EA against BPM and it would be valid. So the large
True.
organization
True.
shows
Yes.
BPM no longer oscillating between relevance and
Yeah.
rejection. So
Yeah.
principally, all these management disciplines that mean good have strong methodologies. There's a tool set. They always have a battle where they're battling for relevance. Now, what we should throw up is, so why now, if you have been in such a toxic environment in your enterprise fighting for relevance, you saw the other party, let's say BPM saw enterprise architecture as somebody else battling for the love of the mother or the father. So
Hmm.
so there is like this competition there where it says, and I was always saying to some customers that you need to generate more face time on C-level. But look, enterprise architecture, they're trotting around there all the time. So there is a real competition, let's say, for C-level FaceTime to keep the relevance up. And as soon as you're not there, there's not a topic there, you drop out of the budget. Now, how about this? Have you ever thought about, hey, you know what? If you don't fight against each other for FaceTime, but you get together and join forces, wouldn't you
Oh,
have
yeah.
not that issue that you're oscillating? So sometimes EI is up, then BPM is up. But if you come up with this what we dream of, this joint methodology and meta model and approach, and you go hand in hand and work on FaceTime and relevance, then in total, won't you win? Won't it be a 1+1 is 3 effect out there? So it would be say,
Hmm.
don't fight against each other. That's not your competition, because AI and
Yeah.
BPM have the same
I agree. I
fundamental,
agree.
let's say, values on
But the
going
thing is that
about
the thing
about
you wait. Yeah. But if you describe it that way, then the mental picture in my head is like two siblings in a family of three kids operating together to make the life of the third a living hell. That's how it comes across. But I agree with you that if EA and BPM would combine forces, would join forces, there would be no articles like this anymore. It would be a driving force for your transformation, but also for your enterprise AI, because you need both. Both are fundamental disciplines on which the more contemporary ones, like AI now, because AI is not yet a fundamental discipline, it is still a contemporary discipline. They are built on top of that fundament. And if that foundation is not proper, you're building sandcastles. They will
yeah.
fall over
And
very quickly.
exactly. Now talking about this family, yeah. So and I'm the third born. I have a younger sister as well, so we were four. But so
Okay.
definitely and my two elder brothers, they're both redheads and whatever. So they from my childhood, this is a good anecdote. There's hardly any pictures of me because after the two first kids were just battling for FaceTime with the
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
They gave up. They didn't even take a picture of me. So before
That sounds familiar,
so
to
I
be
said, oh
very
God,
honest.
forget the third one. Now, who is the third sibling in this family? Data. So we're talking
Yeah.
about BPM
Yeah.
and AI. The third element, and I was talking because we're pitching for this project, which is it's all about actually building up a cross-enterprise data model for consolidating data in a utilities company. And it's, yes, you need the application landscape to understand that. So enterprise architecture. For the governance, we will need roles and responsibilities on how to keep this all together. But the fundamental aspect here is actually to build up one big data meta model that lives also from a governance perspective across the big organization of a collaboration of different entities
Yeah.
that aren't, are related.
Yeah.
And then we have to build up the interfaces and the application. We need to build the governance processes and roles. But the base element here is the data. And that's where
Yeah.
I'm going.
I agree.
So where does this is data management? Is that part of EA? Is it part of BPM? Or do we have to actually, is there something we're missing out in real transformation that we need, let's say, an overarching digital twin that takes, of course, also the data into consideration, and brings this all together? A lot of the times you don't see, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
We don't talk about
I
that a
agree.
lot, do we? But where the data?
Yeah. So this is interesting. So if we take that, I love analogies, but if we take this analogy, let's apply it to a car. Enterprise architecture is pretty much how the car is built up. So what components does it consist of? What kind of capabilities do you have? How does it all fit together? BPM is basically the software, the processes that run in the car to make sure that every component of the car works together. And then data is pretty much the oil that you put into the engine. If you put crappy oil in, the engine will run, but not really well. And if you put good oil in, your engine purrs like a kitten. I mean, that's what it is, right? They're all three complementing components, and if one of the three is off, forget about the other two. They can't compensate.
Nope, nope, nope. And yeah, and so this, and of course, in big transformation, you always have your data stream, and you're always thinking about data migration and data cleansing and new general ledger structures that you need for your data. So it's always there in the transformation. But if you're looking at, say, the methodology and the management around this, it was always very much applied. It was insulated a topic around the application that you're looking at and the context of the
Yep,
processes where you're processing
absolutely.
orders. So you need your order data. But it gets a bigger. It gets in two aspects. It gets more relevant. The one we talked about, process mining. If you want to think
Mm-hmm.
about having a more integrated process mining orchestration and optimization, you have to also take that into consideration in the way the system creates and uses data and
Yeah,
stores it as
yeah,
well. The
yeah,
more you have an enterprise collaboration over entities and a complex application landscape where you have interfaces between different applications and you have more a process that is looking end to end across entities, applications, there the data model and the data storage like data lakes, etc., becomes also much more relevant. The governance, the data model, etc., etc. Is this covered by the classical tools? Ours used to have you could do data modeling like hell.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not a lot of people did it, but we've done some
No,
big
no,
projects
I
there.
agree. I agree.
Enterprise architecture, principally a Linux will go down to a data level if you want to. Yes, do people do it? Rather not. I
No.
haven't seen a lot of cases there. So where in this picture are there? I need to look into it. As I said, I've just thought about this a bit more. What is the discipline around data modeling in this picture that we are throwing up with enterprise architecture and BPM? What are the tools? What are the architects there? And how can we, how do they talk to each other? Data architects, enterprise architects, process architects,
Yeah, yeah.
and what does it need to really for a solid design to work? That's
That's
what
an
I
interesting
think the
thought.
future has to be.
Yeah, we need to get an enterprise architect on the show, and just have that conversation. I think that's a great idea. We need to wrap this up, Russell. I mean, we're already in for quite some while. Time flies in these episodes. Whenever we try to do a shorter one, it still extends. I mean, we're very passionate. I'll end this with a very nice experience I had last week. So last week on Friday, I hosted what we call BPM Excellence events in our office in Amsterdam, and we invite customers and prospects to come in and have a bit of a chat where I go through, let's say, the fundamental concepts of process management. And one of the first guests walks into the room, and I introduce myself, and he goes like, "I was just listening to a podcast by a guy called Casper. Would that be the same person?" I said, "Yes." He was listening to our podcast, Russell. I met a fan in real life. Yay, a follower. It's so flattering and humbling at the same time. So we hope that he stays a listener, of course, to the podcast. Having said that, Russell, I'm going to say goodbye to you from Madrid and give you a very good rest of the week in wherever you need to go. And we'll talk to each other next time.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for listening,
Thanks
and
for listening.
speak to you soon. Take
See ya.
care.
Bye bye.